Greetings, beautiful, powerful, ever unfolding souls, increasingly wising time travelers. This is Timothy Halloran. I am in front of my computer with my fancy astrology software pulled up. We're going to be taking a look through the forthcoming year of 2022. Now, before I jump into things, obviously these years, 2020 into 2021 into 2022, these are extremely pivotal, world-affecting years. So 2020 is the year that we saw the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn. Now, this Saturn-Pluto conjunction occurred on their own south nodes. Saturn-Pluto conjunctions happen roughly every 35 years. Saturn-Pluto conjunction only take place on their own planetary nodes once a century. The last time this Saturn-Pluto conjunction took place was during World War I and the Spanish-American flu. So we're looking at some similarities here at the end of 2019, 2020, when Saturn joined with Pluto. Now, for many years before 2020, I talked about how 2020 was going to be a year of global change. And we're going to see the astrology, and the astrology is going to be obvious, it's going to be proven due to this Earth shift that many astrologers knew would be coming. Now, I called the year 2020 the year of total global reprioritization and restructuring. And this obviously came in the form of coronavirus. Now, this huge upheaval to economy, agricultural, trade, nations, this has spurred in 2020 and continued through the year of 2021, which I called the year of something has got to change. See, in 2021, we saw Saturn enter into Aquarius and square the ruler of Aquarius, Uranus, in a third quarter square. Now, many astrologers have used the phrase crises in consciousness to describe this third quarter square. This phrase comes from Jeffrey Green and is rooted in the work of Dane Rudhyar. This year, 2021, has been an extremely pivotal period of experimentation. Now, this is a breakdown of old societal structures, our orientation to the world, how we're doing our job. This is a meltdown. This is a breakdown. This is a global economic and agricultural revolution. Saturn squaring Uranus. Now, this Saturn square Uranus, as we can see, is exact at the end of 2021. This began 2021. It is concluding 2021. The crises in consciousness, the breakdown, the experimentation in order to bring in fundamentally new structures in terms of how we're orienting to the world, how we are doing our job, how we are surviving on a base root level. So again, this began in 2020 with the year of global reprioritization and restructuring. Now, we saw this in the form of coronavirus, but as we know, studying astrology, there is much more than just an event. There is an evolutionary requirement. Coronavirus is a result of evolutionary necessity. Humans are learning lessons. We're needing to adjust our constructs of society and what is the purpose, what is the prioritization in which we are living. Now, Pluto wakes us up to this reprioritization through the phenomenon of death. Saturn is the planet of mortality, time, three-dimensional reality. So again, in 2020, when we saw Saturn and Pluto join together on their own nodes, this is the year that we're getting a reprioritization. What really matters? What are we really doing in the world? What is the greater effect of humanity? And is it moving in a positive, productive direction? 2021 would be the year where there is this nagging frustration. Uranus in square to Saturn, where it's like being in between a rock and a hard place. We're being forced to make adjustments because the old structures are not working. This is the nature of a third quarter square. It is experienced like this. Something has got to change, and yet what it is that is changing, where the future is going, where humanity is headed, it is unknown. So 2021 has been one of the most erratic, groundbreaking, unstable, unpredictable years of chaos. We also saw the moon's nodes in Gemini Sag polarity. Those moon's nodes squared Neptune towards the end of 2020 into 2021. There has been information chaos, fake news. Nobody knows who's telling the truth. Now I'm going to start to lead us into the transits of 2021. One of the introductory transits of this year is we see now Jupiter's square to the moon's nodes. The moon's north node will move into Taurus on January 13th of this year and remain in the Taurus-Scorpio polarity through July of 2023. So in this video, I'm going to take us through the forthcoming year of 2022. The major theme of the forthcoming year we'll talk about is reflected in the moon's nodes in Taurus-Scorpio polarity. How I am going to refer to 2022, because of course astrologers got to think of their special flair and lingo and terms. So 2020, I titled the year of global reprioritization and restructuring. Even before COVID happened, that's what it was titled. 2021, the year of something's got to change, experimentation, crises in consciousness. 2022 is a year of soul, death, and resurrection. It's going to be a time period of getting back online with who we are as human beings, what it means to be in a body, what it means to be on the planet at this time that's going through such an intense cataclysm that is catalyzing transformation. So this next year is going to have this theme of death and rebirth on the soul level, to return to our sensibility, our feet on the earth. The moon's nodes in Taurus, Scorpio polarity, start of 2022 through mid-2023, are in the feminine signs of Taurus and Scorpio. This forthcoming year will be a rebirth of the feminine. Now, what we're going to talk about in 2022 is we're going to talk about Jupiter's transit through Pisces, square the moon's nodes. We're going to talk about the moon's north node in Taurus conjoining Uranus. We'll talk about Venus in her journey with Mars through this forthcoming year. These will be some of our major themes, okay? So to begin with, again, Saturn is these days in final third quarter square to Uranus. There is this breaking out of old societal conditioning, expectation, obligation. The old rules of the game do not work anymore. Now, this is going to very much be reflected through our hearts, our exchange of money and resources, as well as relationship. So now we're going to start to look into my fancy software. We're going to start to travel through time here. And what we see is that 2022 begins with Venus retrograde. Venus started her retrograde at 26 degrees of Capricorn, and now she is moving backwards, where she is going to station direct at 11 degrees of Capricorn on January 29th. Now, when Venus stations direct at the end of January, many of the themes that have come up at the end of 2021 on instability in terms of money and uncertainty in terms of relationship, questions about how to be open or how to close down, balance between give and take. Are we getting even reciprocation? Are we being valued for what we're putting out there? Are we feeling worthy of what we deserve? And these themes of unworthiness, uncertainty, doubt, distrust, relationship blockages, creativity blockages, money, business blockages, the interference of the government, bureaucracies, authoritative hierarchies, expectations, obligations, all these themes in Capricorn are coming up. Venus just stationed on the south node of Saturn. I'm going to pull up the planetary nodes for us all to see for a second. So these nodes, south node Saturn, south node Pluto, these are at the same degrees roughly for all souls on the planet at this time. These are very important degrees of the Capricorn Cancer polarity that has everything to do with our species evolution. So Venus begins her retrograde on the south node of Saturn. Okay, we can see this. She begins on Pluto on their own south node. Again, 2020 was a Pluto south node of Pluto event. This is where we get these upheavals of collective past. So Venus is doing this upheaval of the past. We're reflecting on old relationships. We're reflecting on how we've been trained to earn money, how we've done our relationship. And there is a reviewing of traditional roles, relationships, how we used to do exchange. And we can suspect there are changes on the horizon. As Venus stations direct at the end of January 2022, there is an update from our hearts. There is a renewal of our core values. Now again, Venus is going to rule the North Node in Taurus in 2022. 2022 is a year of soul death and resurrection, and this is actually kicking off the year. Is this exploration of Venus? What do we love? What do we value? What's our sense of taste? How are we sharing this with others? Is it being reciprocated? When Venus stations direct at the end of January 2022, there is a stability, a stabilizing, the laying of a foundation, renewed commitments, new structures to allow for a new way of creative sharing, a new way of doing relationship, a new way of exchanging money and resources that is updated, that actually works, that allows us a greater anchor into what we love, our own skills and capabilities, and how we can represent these skills, capabilities, gifts in the world. Okay? It's a time of getting to business. It's a time of exploring. Is this working? This Venus retrograde will make or break certain relationships. Is this working? Is this functioning? Can we bring our gifts into the world? What are those gifts, and how can we create the containers and the structures to build, to construct, to lay a foundation for future relationships, for future work associates, projects, and collaborations? This is going to birth projects, commitments, relationships, business designs that can be very long-lasting. But the start of 2022 is an upheaval and exploration of what we value, what do others value, is it working, and how can we get this exchange of love, money, resources in a way that actually works, where we feel supported, we feel productive, and we have everybody at their own role on the ship, right? There is going to be a captain, there's going to be people, down below deck, there's going to be people in different places with different roles, jobs, passions that we're discovering from our own heart space, okay? So this is Venus kicking off 2022. She rules the moon's north node through mid-2023. These forthcoming 18 months is really going to lead us into the feminine, our center, what we love and value inside ourselves. So we can create the container, the temple, the space that allows for us to flourish, that allows for us to be truly centered in our natural rhythm, in our natural flow, in our natural taste, so we can live the life that we're meant to. So we can live the life where we are able to bring into school for show and tell what we love, what we cherish, and what will benefit others by being authentically centered in our core values, creating a life that revolves around these core values. So we're finding the centerpiece beginning this next year through this next 18 months. Now, this is a really beautiful little dance between Venus and Mars I'm going to show here. And this is going to be, again, the first part of 2022. Venus will station direct at the very beginning of January, and now Venus is going to move very, very slowly. Mars, at the same time, is now approaching Venus. Okay? Now Venus and Mars are going to begin to move together February through mid-March. Okay? Now, okay? So Venus and Mars are together, Capricorn through Aquarius, through Pisces. Within 10 degrees, Venus and Mars are joined together. February through April. Capricorn, Aquarius, and then Pisces. And this signature here is talking about this renewal of energy, relationships. It is a time of really getting back online with how we are aligning ourselves with others in collaboration, in relationship, and this is a very creative signature. Mars is all about energy, action. It is our direction. It is our desire. Mars is what keeps the flame of life alive. And Venus, the principle of reciprocation, the principle of sharing, the electromagnetic field of the heart, that what starts off in Taurus, what we love, what we taste, what we cherish, what we want to share, creates an electromagnetism that attracts people of a similar wavelength, those who value similar things as ourselves. This next year is going to really take us into this type of reprioritization. Again, the resurrection of our souls, who we are, what we love, this journey of being led by the heart. Venus and Mars are the lovers. When they join together, there is a raw creative potential to align Mars, our autonomy, our willpower, and our desires with how we're giving and sharing in relationship. When Venus and Mars come together, it's like a raw creative potential where we can birth new directions in the world and relationship, with money, with partnership. It's really going to take us through this exploration of how are we, the lovers, and this is not just relationship, this is also the lovers in ourself. How are we creatively actualizing our purpose in a way that can be shared and given back to the world? This is Mars and Venus together in the 3 final zodiac signs. The last quarter of the wheel of the zodiac is Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, which are the signs of transpersonal consciousness, the signs of the collective consciousness. So this next year is really going to birth new ways of relating to the collective, relating to the world, relating to the greater communities by and large. And we're forming new ways of being in relationship. We're forming new ways of exchanging money and resources. Notice how in March, Venus and Mars together are going to join Saturn, as well as asteroid Juno, square to the moon's nodes. Okay, we're looking at the end of March here. This is a very, very powerful transit and signature that is going to require us to experiment, to push on boundaries, to do research and get feedback so we can invent, Aquarius, the new ways of interrelating to our world, our community, and the greater network of humanity. Aquarius is the species consciousness. Well, our species is evolving. Again, Saturn square to Uranus this week is the signature of this necessary breakdown of how our species has created culture, society, and structures. It is old and outdated. That's what the Saturn-Uranus third quarter square is all about, a crisis of consciousness because something new must be brought in. And yet it's unknown. Aquarius is the future, which is unknown. Aquarius requires us to let go of the known in order to discover what is new, opening up into new possibilities. Well, this March into April, it's going to be a tremendous experiment, and there is a need to experiment. There's a need to apply the conscious effort, the work to create these new structures of how we're relating as a species, as how we're relating as a community. This is going to be very important because end of March and April, when we see all these planets square the moon's nodes, can also be a time where there's so much fast-paced action, sudden change, shocking, unexpected, moving of the chess pieces. This could lead to out-of-body experience, dissociation, escapism, not really getting our feet on the earth, but it's like there can be some traumatic events that are going on that is giving us a little bit of a push that we have to create change. That's what all of these years, coronavirus 2020, it is a forced change. It is not a punishment. It's not just a conspiracy. Every experience on the planet serves our evolution on the individual level, on the collective level. So there is no conspiracy, accident, everything just going to shit because of some kind of weird, somebody messed up or somebody missed the mark. No, we have to change how we're relating. And this again plays out in terms of species consciousness, communities, how we're exchanging resources locally, nationally, but also it is this restructuring of the very network of our own nervous system, of our brain, of how we are wired to give and receive resources. The moon's north node in Taurus is all about discovering how we can create stability and comfort and open space through changing how we relate to the earth, how we relate to agriculture, how we relate to base sustenance. Taurus is survival. Taurus is biological need. And this is where we can make some serious adjustments. Some of the wisdom I'll be spouting now through this forthcoming 18 months is less is more. Minimalization can be liberating. Less time in the old prison culture and world that required us to be exhausted, spread thin, and empty as a standard for performance is soul-crushing. I'm calling 2022 a resurrection of the soul. How do we get our feet back on the ground? How are we resurrecting Venus, Inanna, the feminine? It's through a minimalization, a simplification, and remembering what it actually means to be a human. Where Taurus simply is the gardener, the farmer, the tenant of the earth. And when we can return to our base human principles, which will be different and unique per each and every individual. Not everyone is a literal farmer. We're all symbolic gardeners. We're all going to be taking care of, pruning, honoring, respecting our bodies, our lifestyle, our immediate environment, our relationship to the earth to create containers where we can actually land, where we can make our lives easier, but it's going to require some adjustment. So this is again a beautiful signature between Venus and Mars traveling together. Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. We are building the new relationship. We're building the new community. We're building the new reality. We're dreaming together as lovers. We're experimenting together as lovers. End of March and April, we're not going with the status quo. There is a need here to experiment, to test on boundaries, to try things in a little bit of a different way, because these can introduce these new dimensional possibilities. Aquarius. This can lead to a very fast pace movement into the future. And it's like the rules of the game are going to be fundamentally different, but there's going to be the need to apply the conscious effort to build the next world. Because if we let go and we just let the world run on automatic, we could get very, very crushed, exhausted, manipulated, dragged down in the chaos, the muck, the drama of the world. That is some of the challenge of 2022 with the transiting south node of the moon in Scorpio. Coronavirus is not going to go away. Claustrophobia, everyone being on top of one another, the interferences of other people's dramas, other people's emotions, the chaos of the world that does not know how to handle death or process emotions or grieve or be deep. This is going to catalyze, force us to make adjustments. This is going to give a huge push towards that north node in Taurus. Self-preservation, privacy, spaciousness, natural resources, land, property, in a way that is not depending on the outer structures where we can get very, very entangled in the old dynamics of power and control and manipulation. That's where there's going to be a massive movement towards the self-resourcefulness, do it yourself, build it yourself, grow it yourself, North Node in Taurus. Now, again, Saturn is going to square the nodes. This will be exact in April. And that's where there's this need to apply the conscious effort to birth new structures of interconnection, community. We're going to really need to understand psychology. That's what I see between the Saturn and Aquarius resolution node, Scorpio. Is in order to build a community, we have to know what humanity is. In order to build the future type of relationship, we have to know what humanity is. We can't follow these old patriarchal, religiously distorted rules and regulations of how to love, how to be married, how to be devoted, how to be a man or a woman. That shit's going to blow up from March to April of this year. We're going to need to understand our deeper psyche, our deeper unconscious, why we form the particular nervous system that we formed, what are the different parts, how are they interconnected, because then we can understand what we need, Taurus. Then we can create a container that's going to stabilize those needs, Taurus. Then we can actually breathe because we have the ingredients to have a healthy diet, Taurus. So there is a need to understand the total complexity of what's going on in our world, our humanity, all these different ideas, all these different belief systems. Well, you know what? It's not just about believing. It's about making it real, creating the future. This is also going to be a time where humanity needs to innovate. There could likely be some crises around science or the vaccination or coronavirus. It's like, hey, we've got to really figure out this whole machine that humanity has created on a mass scale. Hive mind consciousness, Aquarius. And if we're going to ignore the machine that we've built on a mass scale and the ramifications it has on the species, that's going to catalyze some real tragedy and trauma. And if we can acknowledge that where experiments are simply to evaluate what's working and what's not, it's not a pass or fail, 100% right or wrong reality. This is a requirement for the scientific community, for humanity's species to be very innovative and make adjustments to acknowledge the total complexity of what's going on the planet. Because biological disease is a fact. It's what's happening. And yet, this is going to be more complex than a one-size-fits-all. what humanity needs, what we need to invent. It's going to be much more than just coronavirus. There's going to be an agricultural revolution. There's going to be a revolution of base exchange of resources, nations, power dynamics, the threats of war, power manipulation on a national level. That's again going to push us towards this North Node in Taurus. So I hope everybody's ready for that. All right. Let's talk about Jupiter. Okay? Jupiter is right now the last degree of Aquarius. Jupiter will enter into Pisces on the 28th of December and then remain in Pisces through May 10th. Okay? Jupiter will enter into Aries on May 10th. Jupiter's going to station retrograde on July 28th at 8 degrees of Aries. Move back into Pisces on October 28th. And then return back into Aries December 20th. So, from all except from May to October, through October, we see Jupiter is mostly in the sign of Pisces, where Jupiter is traditionally exalted. Jupiter's also going to be sextile to Uranus in February. This is going to really spur some creative visionary, opening up to the future, seeing where humanity is being led, a tremendous creative rebirth. It's like we are rediscovering our antenna that is connecting us to the spiritual. Jupiter transiting Pisces through 2022 is going to tune us into the mystical reality of synchronicity, the magic of phenomenon itself, that everything is interconnected. Jupiter in Pisces gives us an expanded awareness of the bleed through that occurs on every dimension and near mystical level. What Pisces ultimately is the reality that all of life is divine dance. All of life is a musical symphony. Everything is a dance of union and separation, a dance of love, a dance of divine expression. Jupiter in Pisces is really going to make us more attuned to this. When Jupiter's sextile to Uranus in February, it's again this very visionary, antenna to heaven, creative genius, downloading the future, downloading new creative expression. It flows through us more so easily. And then Jupiter conjoins Neptune in April. Okay? This is a very dreamy, spiritual, romantic, beautiful. This is very, very much a time period where we're opening our hearts to spirituality. Our right brain is very powerful in April. This is also when Jupiter is going to sextile Pluto from April into May. And we have a near psychic depth, a penetrative intuition that can really be understanding our deeper relationship to humanity. Jupiter through Pisces is going to wake us up to deeper purpose and meaning. And it's a beautiful month, April, because we see, again, Venus and Mars, the lovers, are going to be conjunct in Pisces, this visionary, dreaming, romantic, loving, and creative, so creative. It's like we are all channels and we're all downloading this bigger picture perspective of who we are as individuals and how we're connected to the collective that gives us a deeper sense of meaning and purpose by being connected to something bigger than just ourselves. And we're really going to feel that fullness. And we're really going to feel that sense of purpose, like wind filling the boat's sails. That's our compass. And we're going to get an update while Jupiter conjoins Neptune. This update is going to lead us into a deeper recognition of our purpose, of our being knitted into the divine tapestry, of being a part of this divine dance. This will also be the case when Jupiter returns to Neptune and stations direct later on in November. Okay, there's going to be a reflection upon, again, this right brain intuition, this reality of synchronicity and what brings us to the right place at the right time. How do we trust that? What is that which we are trusting? Who is God? How is our relationship to God supportive? What is faith? What is surrender? How can we surrender so to be carried and supported by that divinity? One foot in this world, one foot in the spiritual world. That is the potential. Jupiter through Pisces most of this next year, but especially April when Jupiter conjoins Neptune. Now, as we mentioned, May 10th through October 28th, Jupiter's going to be foreshadowing Aries time. Okay, and that will be Jupiter's transit in 2023 that will have much more of an entrepreneurial initiation, trailblazing, taking risks, being the daredevil, so to introduce new possibilities to humanity. That will be introduced to us later on in 2022. Jupiter's going to be opening new doorways. When Jupiter stations retrograde in Aries on July 28th, this is going to be a time where we're really exploring to reinvent our sense of truth, purpose, and philosophy. Now, right now, Jupiter is square to the moon's nodes. On January 3rd, this square will be exact. 2022 begins with a philosophical uncertainty. And again, this is going to kick off 2022, Jupiter exalted in Pisces, which is bringing us into this deeper sense of purpose. Again, faith, trust, meaning. What is that we are connected to? How can we be carried by that creative flow? Well, 2022 is beginning with this existential, philosophical exploration. And is this really true? And is this really good? And is this really right? See, Jupiter is our conscience, like Jiminy Cricket, giving us a sense of what is actually beneficial or what may just be seemingly beneficial. Jupiter square the nodes requires us to be honest. For example, I know many astrologers out there that are very good at deceiving themselves that they are actual astrologers, while they take advantage of so many of their clients who unfortunately cannot discern a true astrologer from a bad astrologer or a fake astrologer. And so there are many fake astrologers that make their living off of deception. And maybe they convince themselves that they're helping other people, but they're not. And that's something we really need to take a look at in our own lives. Are these practices? Is this truth? Is this religion? Is this orientation? Is this actually healthy, or is this some type of escapism? Is this healthy, or is this some type of enabling? How easy this is when I let myself get away with it. So Jupiter square the nodes now, we're having to look at our own inner coyote so we can rediscover and be truthful, honest, conscience. Is this moral? Is this truly benefiting humanity? Jupiter in Pisces is going to want us to discover some type of connection with the greater world that gives us that deeper sense of purpose because it's authentic. This is how we truly get filled up and carried through life. It's not when we fake people into believing that what we're doing is valid or real. It's when what we're doing is so valid and real, we're so filled by the results of our own actions and our own orientations. Again, later on in 22, it's going to be Saturn square the moon's nodes. And then we're really going to have to get to work. We're really going to have to build this next world, this next reality, because this is not going to get served to us on a silver platter. Not in late spring 2022. We're going to have to break out of some of this old societal conditioning. We're going to have to liberate ourselves from the norm to be able to understand the deeper complexity. Because if we're doing this type of dishonest, quick win, cover everything up so that way it looks pretty on the surface and we don't really know what we're doing underneath the surface, that's going to be a total tragedy. And we already see this by and large in the world, do we not? With scientism and the one size fits all, and everybody just looks to the leader as the lemmings lead the other lemmings off of the cliff face, right? Do we actually know what we're doing? What is the truth? What is a healthy orientation to the greater whole? That's what Jupiter square the nodes now is asking us to really look at. Okay. One last bit I'll mention about 2022 before we wrap up this little introduction to the year ahead is that we're going to see Mars station retrograde in Gemini at the end of October. And then Mars is going to station direct at 8 degrees Gemini. He begins his retrograde 25, back to 8 degrees Gemini from end of October through mid-January 2023. Okay, Mars retrograde occurs once every 2 years, roughly. So the end of 2022 is going to be a reboot of our drive, energy, sexuality that's going to bring us into an alignment between willpower and our actual interests. So that way we can do more, we can juggle more, we can have multiple interests, we can do more than one thing at once, we can be exploring our sexuality with greater diversity, with greater support to get mental feedback, to understand our energy, our body, our sexuality, our libido. So we'll get that Mars retrograde at the end of 2022 into 2023. That is also going to help rebirth some of our direction. Again, Uranus is going to conjoin the moon's north node at the end of 2022. This is really going to bring us into the reinvention of lifestyle, money. Again, agricultural revolution is already ongoing and will increase on the horizon, on the menu. How are we getting base resources? How are we exchanging? The wisdom is towards simplification, downscaling, minimalizing, doing it ourselves. People are leaving the big, clustered, claustrophobic cities where there's chaos, where there is disagreements, there's manipulations, there's control dynamics. I wonder if Saturn square the nodes here will bring in some more authoritative, controlling types of rules and regulations because we don't actually know how to manage the species consciousness, and that's going to push people into more of the hermit way of living. How do we get privacy? How do we get away from the cameras and the robots and all of these structures? Okay, so this is going to be a collective movement. There's going to be inventions, innovations, new ways of living in community, using sun, for example, to do solar panels, to generate electricity. This is going to not just like roll out in stores like all of a sudden all of the solar panels is available. This is going to be a big push to find the innovators, to ride that pioneering wave into the future and really create these new lifestyles, these new ways of living and being. Okay? So get ready. This is going to be the moon's north node in Taurus, south node in Scorpio from January 13th of next year through July of 2023. We will have 2 eclipse seasons, as always, in the year to come. There is going to be 2 partial solar eclipses. The first one, 10 degrees Taurus, will be on April 30th. The second partial solar eclipse will be at the end of the year, October 25th, at 2 degrees of Scorpio. The total eclipses in 2022 are lunar eclipses. Okay? The first lunar eclipse is at 25 degrees Scorpio on May 16th. Okay? This is really going to be bringing up some of these themes I just mentioned, where there's going to be a big push coming from humanity to simplify, to downscale, but it's really going to illuminate this next spring and early summer. It's really going to illuminate the pulse of humanity's greater health, psychologically, biologically, and again, there's going to likely be an experience of complexity, power dynamics. It's like we're having to figure out resources. This is where there is like a bleed through between self and other. It can be very, very cluttered, but there is this need to create new structures for community networking that's going to bring us back online with our bodies. Again, this simplification direction. So really, this nodal theme, Taurus, Scorpio, that's going to kick off in May. That's when we're really going to start to see this push towards the hermit This is when we're really going to discover the need to return to ourself and our center, and to not be thrown off our center by the magnetism, the complexity of the world. Yes, we're also going to need to explore that deeper complexity of our own psyche, our own psychology, as well as some of the depth and darkness going on in the world. And then we'll have our total Taurus lunar eclipse on November 18th at the end of this year. And that's going to really give us a push into reviving Venus. This is our compass point. The transiting moon's north node. You can pull this up in your own birth chart. It's going to show the evolutionary direction where we're going this next year. You can look at the house of the transiting north node, wherever Taurus is in your chart. This next year is really going to take you deeper into that house, deeper into Taurus. This is again Venus, the divine feminine. This is how we are restoring our connection to the earth. We are rediscovering our sensibility. That is what actually brings us into our bodies, into our environment, so we can work with what is here, present. Taurus is the Buddhist wisdom. It is this wisdom of Zen, wisdom of simplicity. Buddhist monks prefer to have their environment full of space rather than full of clutter. Because in the space, we can fill that space with our own consciousness. We can create these realms that reflect back our hearts, the kingdom of heaven, the spiritual world. We're all going to have opportunities to anchor more of that most missing feminine medicine, the worlds of milk and honey, the reality of this planet being one of pleasure and one of paradise, if we can return to the basic principles of what it means to be alive, what it means to be human. So we've all got enough air to breathe, we've all got enough food to eat, we've got somewhere to sleep, but we're also going to be discovering some of our own needs that go much deeper than this. Do we have a need for touch? What are our sexual needs? What are our physical needs? How can we create an environment that is like a life raft that's going to keep us afloat, that's going to keep us full and fuller than we ever knew was possible, more relaxed than we ever knew was possible? Because some of this old patriarchal structure that we've unfortunately set up for ourselves is this dog-eat-dog, fight-to-survive world, where everything has to be challenging, everything has to be complex. There is no freedom, there is no space. If we want to get something, we've got to report to higher authorities, and then they've got to report to their bosses. And there are these power structures that are oppressive and limiting. So that is what we can confront. That is what we can realize, and recognizing is in the way of our own living, being alive. We can get our taproot back to the center of the earth to fill ourselves with that proper nutrition, nourishment, so that way we can relax into our potential. See, this dog-eat-dog, fight-to-survive world, this patriarchal, male-dominant society has oppressed feminine principles. I'm calling 2022 the year of soul, death, and resurrection, while the moon's nodes are in the feminine polarity of Taurus and Scorpio. We'll have the opportunity to rebirth and reconnect with this feminine principle. We understand that when we are relaxed, we're comfortable, and we feel supported and therefore centered in our body, we experience greater life currents. We anchor more consciousness into our body. So when we are exhausted, anxious, bent out of shape, the way this society keeps us oriented, and the capitalistic society keeps us oriented that way, so that way only the people at the top even have the capability to relax or survive. That's what the old structure tells us. It's not true. It's not reality. We can build, construct, and liberate ourselves into a greater reality. But we have to defy and break down this old matrix that says we can't relax first. We have to retire, and then we'll relax. We'll retire with all of our health issues after we've already sacrificed our life, right? So this feminine principle says we're healthier, we're more capable of helping others when we take care of ourselves first. We have more creative energy, more innovative potential when we're relaxed in our body first. So that's where this next year can be tremendously productive. We've already done the 2020, crane knocking over the whole wall of how we used to live. It's no longer possible. We might as well push on the limits, push on the boundaries, and create a new way of living. That's going to be our whole species' opportunity going into this next year. Hopefully right now, while Saturn is square to Uranus, we're experiencing this crisis that is we cannot go backwards. We may not know exactly where we're going next, but in case we feel we can't go back, good. I think that's the healthiest thing we can experience at this time. And so long as we're open to new possibilities and we're applying the conscious effort to actually create a new way of living, breathing, heck, we could create a whole new culture. We don't have to celebrate these same damn holidays being so off the mark and so unfulfilling. We can create a whole new humanity, a whole new way of interrelating with the earth, with nature, with the greater cycles and seasons of time. Certainly those watching this video already have the tool and the advantage of astrology. Well, we can use this map to maneuver through the forthcoming year and really get our souls back online. This next year can birth very powerful relationships, very loving commitments, and tremendously inspirational, creative potential. So I hope that you all get your innovator caps on. I hope that you plan some mystical adventures to reconnect with the divine, to take a trip to the local temple, to get your feet back on the earth and reconnect with nature, because there miracles await us all. As always, I am wishing you absolutely all the best. For those of you catching this on YouTube, you can get exclusive astrological content just like this through the community website. That's rasalilacommunity.com. I also offer a live Q&A session every month. You can bring in your chart, ask a question about what's going on in your life. You can ask a question about this next year as it pertains to your own life. I'm available for you every month, only $12 to join my Q&A circle and have a question personally answered to by me. You can also join my Astro School for $24 a month. It's some of the most in-depth astrological curriculum you can find online. So if you're interested into tapping into some of this evolutionary astrology, you can find me at rasalilacommunity.com. Again, I'm wishing us all a fantastic year to come, and as always, please do take care.